aim like a 5-year-old picking up a phone for the first time? Because I know I do often. My name is Mark and welcome to my channel. Over many years of playing first-person shooters on mobile, I've learned many techniques and methods to improve my aim, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 tips that have really helped me improve my aim over the many years I've been playing. Some of these might be more basic for beginners, but some of them also might apply to some of you more advanced players, so make sure you stay tuned and we're going to jump right into this. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment if you want to see more of these types of videos, and let's just get right into the first tip. Number 5, use practice and deathmatch maps to practice a training routine. Now, this might seem really obvious and like some of you players might already understand this and know all this, but a lot of players don't really understand the importance of using these deathmatch and practice maps to practice a training routine. Now, some of the advantages to this are the fact that you really do gather a big routine when you're playing this. It sounds very obvious, like I said, but the fact that you're honing in your skills and your muscle memory is something that will be really important when you get on later in your gaming career. And this doesn't have to be for super long every day. You can play for maybe 10 to 20 minutes every day before you play within a deathmatch map or a practice map. And either of these have their advantages as well. Within the deathmatch map, you're going to be playing against real players, right? So you're going to see what their movement is like in real life, and you're going to be seeing how they react. But something that's really good in the practice mode is that you're not going to be distracted by anything in the chat. You're not going to be distracted by trolls or any notifications or anything like that. So definitely choose which one you like to use because they have their different purposes. But I would say definitely practice training in a practice or deathmatch mode, whether it be through the actual game, just a quick deathmatch, or through a custom deathmatch. I often like to use the ones that have 1 second respawn, unlimited time, unlimited kills, and then just 16 people, because it then allows you to kill the most amount of people and warm up your hands faster rather than just running around looking for a bunch of players. So I would recommend personally using those custom death matches. If they have 15 out of 16 players for deathmatch, hop in that as quick as you can, because that means it's really a good warm-up match. And a lot of times people will title their warm-up servers, hey, warm-up only, or instant respawn or something like that. So look out for that when you're doing this. And also, as a tip, that you don't have to necessarily play in your own server. It's going to be great to play in your own server to warm up, but you can play in a different server, maybe a different region, because there might be more players up at a certain time of the day. Just make sure to switch your region back to your region when you're playing, because you don't want to have that high ping when you're aiming and when you're playing, because high ping is the bane of good aim. You can have really good aim, but if you have high ping, that aim just doesn't really do much. So make sure you have good aim and make sure you're on this correct server you want to have. But yeah, going back to deathmatch and practice modes, when you have that deathmatch opportunity, you can play against real players and understand how they like to sit and how they like to peek and whatnot. It's not going to be exact simulation of defuse or ranked matches, because it is deathmatch. People are just running around randomly, but you can still understand how people like to run around and how people like to move, which is a really good grasp. And then it also trains your hand memory, because if you're playing a lot, if you're playing with 2 fingers, it'll train your thumbs a lot more. If you're playing with 4 fingers, it'll train your fingers when to shoot, when to aim. So I definitely recommend claw as well, but that's going to be for another video. So number 5 really is just to use practice maps and deathmatch maps to practice and develop a training routine so you can build some muscle memory. Number 4 is know when to pre-aim. A lot of people really try to pre-aim an opponent when they're trying to peek an angle, but maybe some of you don't understand what pre-aiming even is, so let me explain what pre-aiming is. Pre-aiming is essentially trying to aim your crosshair before you see a person where you think that person will be. And now, that is a really good tactic, 4 out of 5 times, but when you're playing against really good players, they're not going to be aiming, they're not going to be sitting in those angles that are really common, right? They're going to be sitting in what are called off angles, which are non-traditional angles that might catch you off guard if you're not understanding when you should pre-aim, right? So if you're playing at a lower level, pre-aiming might be really good, or if you know you're consistent with how they play or how they understand stuff, you definitely will want to pre-aim certain angles because you've seen an enemy play that position multiple times in the same game. But oftentimes, pre-aiming is not necessarily the best thing to do, because if an opponent plays an off angle, you're gonna have to react faster, right? And so essentially one of the best things with aiming in critical ops is to make sure you have to move your crosshair as little as possible, right? And so that's a lot of the reason why people pre-aim, because they want to have their crosshair instantly on a player once they peek a corner, but sometimes that player won't be in that corner, right? So a really good thing to do is when you're peeking a corner is to glue your crosshair to that corner. Let's say you're peeking a corner and you want to slowly wide swing that angle. You're not going to keep it where you think that player will be. You're going to slowly slowly swing out and move your crosshair as you're rotating, because you want to clear out every single angle, right? When you're pre-aiming a spot, you really only clear out one angle, and if that player is in an off angle, you have to react. You're gonna have to move your finger to exactly flick to where that player is, and then in that time, they'll probably have reacted faster and have a headshot on you, right? So being able to know when to pre-aim, right? If you're playing at a lower rank, pre-aiming might be good for you. And if you're playing against players who don't really adjust or aren't really good at adapting, pre-aiming also might be good. But let's say you don't have control of an area and you're not really sure, you want to clear out all the angles around that wall or around that area that you're trying to clear. And so aiming with the wall so that you can clear all 360 angles or 180, however many you're trying to clear, degrees of that radius you're trying to clear, because then it'll allow you to adjust faster. Whereas if you were glued on one angle, you're not going to be able to adjust as fast and you will die earlier. Number 3, work on advanced crosshair placement. A lot of the times I see players aiming at the ground, which is not good, and I see people aiming way too high, which is also not good. So make sure you're not aiming there. Make sure you're aiming generally at the head level. And why I say generally is because oftentimes I like to aim at the head level, and that really does work for me. However, if you are playing an opponent that you don't understand super well, maybe don't aim at the head level, and this is something that a lot of pros might dispute me against. But I would say oftentimes aim a little bit lower than the head level at the body level, because you don't know whether they're gonna crouch peek. Something that I've seen very common is that players love to crouch peek in critical ops, and it really throws you off guard, right? If they're gonna crouch peek, they jump out and crouch peek. You're not gonna be aimed at their head, you're gonna be aimed above their head, and you're not gonna do any damage, right? If you aim a little bit lower, you will actually get their headshot really fast, and if they crouch, or if they don't crouch peek, let's say they just traditionally peek, you will still get damage onto their torso. You might not get the headshot as fast, and then if they have that headshot angle onto you, you might get caught off guard. But oftentimes when I see players crouch peek consistently, I will just aim my crosshair a little bit lower, because I know that their head's gonna be a little bit lower below the typical headshot angle. And something that I also learned is that when you're playing against components that you don't really know that often, make sure you're learning them, right? Even if it is a ranked game and you don't understand your opponents, try and see how they like to play the game, maybe during warm-up or maybe during the first couple rounds, play a little bit slower, and you can see how you should aim according to how they like to peek, right? Oftentimes aim is, oh my gosh. Oftentimes aim is not gonna win you a game, but aim is really crucial to how a player plays, right? So if you're able to aim, let's say a player likes to jump peek a lot. I don't think a lot of players like to jump peek, but if a player does like to jump peek, it will definitely catch you off guard. So making sure you like to know the tendencies of those players and know where to aim. Let's say they jump peek, maybe your crosshair is gonna be a little bit higher, whereas if they like to crouch peek, maybe it's gonna be a little lower, right? So if they're peeking like normal and jiggle peeking or something like that, make sure you have your crosshair right at that head level so you can get that headshot as soon as possible and react as little as possible. So essentially with good crosshair placement, you kind of have to be very adjusting to understand how players like to play, but in general aiming at the head level is really good, and that head level is something that you kind of adjust to over time in the game. If you don't know what head level is, just kind of look around at your teammates and just kind of keep it right there. Don't really move your horizontal or vertical axis as much, because it will allow you to play better in terms of having that headshot angle and not having to react as far. Number 2 is set up a hand routine. This might sound really weird because I mentioned already, setting up a practice or a TDM deathmatch routine to, get that practice warm up already in. But this hand routine is a little bit more outside of the game and a little more to do with your actual hands and fingers. So your hands and fingers are huge assets when playing critical ops. So you have to make sure that they're in good condition when you're going to be playing, right? So obviously, like I said, with the warm up, it is warming up your fingers and it is providing good muscle memory. But there's a lot of things outside of playing the game that you might not realize does have an effect on your game. Let's first say, for instance, you really like to go outside into nature, right? Maybe your hands are dirty and you don't really realize that your hands are dirty before you start playing the game. Washing your hands before a game might be a good solution, or every time before you want to play, wash your hands so that you can have that consistent clean feeling on your hands before you play. For instance, where I live, it's really dry outside, so oftentimes I'll put on some lotion in my hands to make sure that it's the same level of moisture within my hands every single time I play, because sometimes it rains and then my hands become moist and it allows me to aim better, but if it's dry, my hands or fingers will slide around on the screen. So allowing for yourself to kind of set up the perfect situation, right, that definitely allows for you to understand kind of how you like to play and how you can adapt and set up the best situation for yourself to succeed when you do play. Another thing, for instance, is if you maybe, this isn't related to your hands, but if you kind of have your fingers around a lot of different things, or your your phone or your device is around a lot of different things. Your phone or screen or your tablet screen, whatever device you play on, that screen might be a little bit dirty. So making sure you wipe that off every time before you play, because you want to have a clean screen before you play. If you've seen your friend's phone or friend's tablet with a bunch of fingerprints on it, it kind of makes you kind of go, ugh, that's kind of gross, right? So you want to make sure you have a clean slate ready to play every single time you want to play, because obviously it is going to get dirty with fingerprints over time when you do play. But you want to make sure that when you start, you don't have any gunk or random soda or anything that you've maybe eaten or something on that tablet screen, because that's going to hinder the consistency of whether you're able to flick or aim or anything like that. So making sure you set yourself up for success with a good hand routine, maybe washing your hands, maybe putting lotion on, maybe wiping your screen down, whatever it takes, or putting hand sanitizer, a wide variety of things that works for you, and setting up a routine before you even start to warm up sets you up for success within the game of Critical Ops and helps you aim better. The last thing I have to say, the number one tip for me, is to keep the same sensitivity. Yes, I know this seems very obvious, but I think a lot of players don't realize that keeping the same sensitivity is one of the best keys into actually having better aim. A lot of players will ask me and a lot of other pros. I'm not a pro, I don't know why y'all ask me, but some people ask me, what is your sensitivity? What are your settings? I wanna know your settings because you aimed really well in this one video, right? And that's the thing. I aimed well in one video, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna help you aim well in all of your playing career, right? Something that I've seen a lot is working with what works for you. And if you don't know what really works for you, definitely try a lot of things out. I know a ton of players who really like high sensitivities and they're able to flick and do all that stuff, whereas I'm not able to do that, right? So I compensate with a lower sensitivity, which works better for me because I am not super precise when I'm aiming, but it allows me to adjust better, right? Aiming is not all about flicking or being super precise, but it's setting yourself up for success, like I said, with that crosshair placement, or with knowing your enemies and how they like to peek. So understanding a lot of that, and also changing your sensitivity might not be the best thing because it hinders how your muscle memory works. If your muscle memory is set up to work at maybe 4x sensitivity and 2y sensitivity, changing your sensitivity to like 3x and 1.5y, that's definitely going to change how your muscles feel, and it's not going to feel the same. Your muscles might have to extend a little bit more or a little bit less depending on what you change your crosshairs to, or your sensitivity to, but that's something that I've noticed. There are some exceptions though. Let's say you took a really big break from Critical Ops, maybe you took a year or 2 years off playing video games, and you come back and your sensitivity from a while ago is just not cutting it, right? You've tried so many different things, you tried getting back to it, but it just feels off. Maybe some developments have happened in your hand or your fingers, something has changed with how you use your fingers or hands in the past couple of years, and so that same sensitivity that was comfortable for you 2 years ago might not feel the same as it does now. So making sure that you're aware of that. I know when I came back to playing certain games, I like to change the sensitivity because, if you're playing, say, Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG Mobile, and Critical Ops, they all have a very different aiming mechanism. Though they are FPS games, their aiming just feels different, right? So switching in between games will often mess up a little bit of sensitivity as well. So keeping the same sensitivity within one game and trying to keep that same sensitivity within multiple games as well. If you do like to play, let's say, Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG Mobile, and Critical Ops all at the same time, making sure that relative to each game, your sensitivity is very similar. That will definitely help you set up for success, because then your muscle memory transfers across not only one game, but multiple games. So that's really what I have for your tips and tricks. I guess I'll go over them really quick one more time. Number 5 is to warm up using this deathmatch and practice maps routine to just get, a training routine warm up. Number 4 is know when to pre-aim. You don't always have to pre-aim all the time. Number 3 is working on your advanced crosshair placement at the head level, at the lower level, and at the upper level. Setting up a hand routine was my number 2 tip, which is kind of making sure you wash your hands possibly, or lotion, or wiping down your screen depending on what you like to do before you play. And my last one is don't change your sensitivity. Obviously, if you want to keep consistency within your aim, and maybe not necessarily improve it instantly, but help it improve over time, definitely keep your sensitivity the same. So I know some of these tips might have been obvious, but I hope some of them were also insightful for you. If you do manage to use them, let me know how they go for you and if they've helped you in the past. Some of these probably, hopefully, were pretty insightful for even those veteran players out there. But let me know if this was helpful for you. If you did enjoy this, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day, everybody.